that characteristic trait was definitely strengthened throughout my career. And I found myself in the room of really amazing, successful people, some of my role models, and also a lot of just men who were 25 years older than I was minimum. And I had to sharpen the skill to, I'm 5'2", I'm relatively little, but when people meet me on Zoom, they think I'm, a lot taller than I am because my personality takes up so much room. And I had to strengthen that skill of bravery of like, I'm going to go in this room and I'm going to get my outcome because that's what I'm here to do.
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Welcome, Emily, to the show.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. This is a long time coming. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait for my listeners to hear your story because it's such a powerful one. Tell us about how you got your start and then how Wellery came to be.
I started Wellery from a personal experience. I was in my late 20s and I had recently been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And the doctors told me, here's a bunch of medication you can take, in short. And I said, that doesn't seem right. No one had asked me my lifestyle. No one had asked me what I was eating. And so I figured there has to be a way. I came to this conclusion because my backstory is 3 of my 4 grandparents are entrepreneurs. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. I had spent a decade prior, a little short shy of a decade, in problem-solving roles. And so I come to the conversation with the doctor myself saying, is this the best way to solve this problem? Why or why not? And I felt for me, taking medication wasn't going to be the best way to solve this problem. There had to be another way. And as an entrepreneur, you figure out what that way is. And so for me, I ended up becoming a certified nutrition specialist. I ended up learning all about how food can actually impact your health. Long story short, I ended up figuring out actually how to cure what was the PCOS diagnosis. And from there, realized, wait a minute, nutrition has to play an integral part in a healthcare journey and a patient's journey. I was working at a startup at the time in a sales position, which we can chat all about, but I had learned how do you problem solve in the context of a company and how do you do that at scale? And I said, this is a problem that I'm passionate about. I have to change the world. I have to help hundreds of millions of other people lean on nutrition and food as they go through their healthcare journey, and ended up starting the company with a friend of mine who I went to high school with, built it for 5.5 years, and we were acquired actually about 1 year ago, I think, to the day today, now that I'm looking at the calendar.
Wow. What an incredible journey. Okay. So first, I have so many questions just based on that story alone. First of all, do you feel like a legacy of entrepreneurs, right? You literally have entrepreneurial spirit in your DNA. Did that always make you want to be an entrepreneur, or were there things that made you like want to go away from that? How did it affect you growing up?
I would say I definitely leaned into it. Like I definitely leaned closer to it than leaning away from it. Reframe my thinking on it to say being able to solve a problem was ingrained in me. Like not taking an answer as the only path. Like that's a lot of what company building is, right? And that's a lot of what entrepreneurship is. Like, is this the right way something should work? How do you make this process better? How do you build something in a better way? That line of thinking is what guided a lot of what I did. And then that ended up becoming entrepreneurship because I couldn't just because I was like, I have to figure this out for myself.
How did it impact you feel? I'm so curious about this. Just from my own experience, I grew up with parents who worked like literally for a pension. They loved what they did, but they were totally risk averse. To be in a family of what must have been risk takers, did it help you build more tolerance for risk? Or did
Yes,
it's 100%.
Because
not early.
Yes. In fact, I was taught not to be scared of risk. I was taught at a very young age to have the confidence and the conviction to know that the risks that you were going to take were worthwhile. So we were taught not to take dumb risks. We were taught to take smart risks. And how do you evaluate?
Yes. And make sure that you're solving a problem in some way. That's fabulous. Okay. One more question before we go on to the actual build and scale Wellery, because that story is fantastic. You mentioned that you worked in sales at a startup.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you are building a company that is going to be successful and you're going to take risks and you're going to do all of that, is sales experience absolutely necessary?
If you are the CEO, yes. And sales experience can come from a lot of different places. So my first job as a salesperson, I was 16 years old. I had an internship at a publishing company and they needed advertisements sold in the magazines. And I said to my boss as a 16-year-old intern, I'll do it. And I went door to door to restaurants. I grew up in New York. I'm a Brooklyn girl. I went door to door as a 16-year-old and I went into restaurants because we were selling ad placements in these magazines to a lot of retail and hospitality locations. And I said to this restaurant, it's 2:00. You're empty. Where are all of your guests? You need more people showing up to your restaurant. If you buy an ad in our magazine, we can help that happen. And fast forward after a summer of doing that, my boss was like, you're better than any of our full-time accounts executives. And then that through line, I am a salesperson through and through in my career. That's what I would attest any of my success to, is being able to sell and close deals, because you need to have sales experience, but you also need to know how to close the deal at the end of it. And I spoke to someone yesterday, like at the end of the day, as a deal closer, you can apply sales and deal closing to anything. And that is what will help make a business successful. Can you close a customer? Can you close an investor? Can you close a partner? Can you close an employee? Can you close a future acquirer? Can you sell your services? Can you sell yourself as a team member? Can you sell your mission? Can you sell your vision? All of those things are a formula that will go to the growth of the business, which is validating supply and demand. Is there demand for what you're selling? Can you sell it? And then can you close the deal? And a lot of companies that don't get over the finish line, it's a lot of times not because they don't have a great team. It's not because they don't have a great product. A lot of times it's because the deal didn't close and the deal didn't get through. And that's the hardest part. And so that, I think, if you, at least in my experience and having led the life and the experience that I've had thus far, having sales experience in a variety of ways has really helped propel my success forward to get to where we are today.
You and me both, sister, for sure. You're preaching to the choir. Okay.
Yeah.
So that ability to close a deal, when you had the idea for Wellery and you decide that you are going to raise funds, right? You know, you need money to make this happen. Talk to me about how that then comes to be. Do you tap into people you know? Do you actually go out there? I mean, you were able to really create a VC-backed startup and raise a significant amount of funds. How does that happen?
Yep. So the first was a decision I made, which was, do I want to build a lifestyle business or do I want to build a venture business? And there are trade-offs to both and there's benefits to both, obviously. When I started Wellery, I was 26, turning 27, and I was like, I want to raise money. I want that experience. I wanted to challenge myself as a salesperson. Could I not just, at the time I was doing enterprise sales, could I do enterprise sales, but could I also raise money? I had never done that before. And so I wanted the experience of raising money. I wanted to build a company quickly. I wanted to make impact fast. I felt that in the category that we were building in, it was a lot of like first movers advantage, and I needed funding to get us to the level at which I wanted to operate very, very quickly. So I made the decision early on that I was going to build a venture business. And by taking on that risk, to go back to risk, that then came with timelines, expectations, fiduciary responsibilities, and a certain way of building that is different than if you were to build a lifestyle business. So first and foremost, I made the decision that I was going to build a VC-backed company. And then I worked at a company. I worked in an HR tech startup at the time. I was head of customer success. And the board member of that company asked me, what do you want to do? Big picture, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to start a company. And I had an amazing, amazing leadership team at that company who I learned so much from and really admire. And so when I said this to the board member, he said, here's $25,000. Go start it. He said, I don't care what category you're building in. I don't need to know how the business works. Just go get started.
Because he believed in you.
Because he believed in me. Correct. To this day, I still talk to him frequently and adore him. And he is a door opener for myself and so many other founders. But he was the first person who said, it actually doesn't really matter. Do you believe you can do it? And I said, I do. And he said, okay, so go do it. So he wrote me a $25,000 check. It was terrifying at the time. I was, oh my God, now what? I had to figure out how to legally accept it. But he helped me navigate that process and then introduced me to a few other people. And one thing led to another. We ended up raising a few $100,000 and then we turned it into a formal round. We raised our first, I think it was 1.2 million. And then I was building. And then we had a company and then we had capital to work with and team members to hire. And I had partnered with a friend of mine who I went to high school with, and she and I sat together as co-founders and we said, okay, we're doing this. And now how do we do this? And we had a lot of problems to solve. But it was really the first check that opened the door for me. That was my green light to say go. And then I just started running and basically ran for 5 years straight.
Okay, so you ran for 5 years straight. You bring on a co-founder. You're raising money. So what is it? First, talk about what it ends up becoming, the platform. Talk about what it evolved into.
Yeah. So our first product was a direct-to-consumer mobile app subscription that would allow a consumer to sign up for $35 a month and text with a dietitian. And they could take photos of what they were eating and they would send it to a dietitian and they would sign up with a goal. At the time, it was something like more than 60% of our customers signed up with the goal of weight loss. So people would come to say, I want to lose weight. It's 2019. This is pre-COVID. I want to lose weight. I don't know how to. I've tried working out. I've tried all these things. I really want to focus on my diet. So they would take pictures of their meals. They would send it to their dietitian all over text message. And then their dietitian would put together a personalized plan for the consumer that was based on real-time feedback, being able to actually have visibility into what a person was eating. That was our first product that evolved to a mobile app that serviced all 50 states. We were iOS and Android, so available for Apple and Android phones. And then the number one feedback we started getting from our customers was not only am I paying out of pocket, but could my company cover this as a company benefit? And so then we started selling subscriptions in bulk as an HR benefit to corporations that they could say to their employees, you now get what started off as 25% off a subscription. You now get a full subscription, covered by the company. And then as the business continued to grow, our number one feedback from customers became, well, the company doesn't want to pay for this. Can this become a benefit through health insurance? And so then we ended up evolving the business model and going in network with health insurance. So we were in network with Cigna, with Aetna, with Medicare. And we became the largest network of dietitians in the country that matched patients with dietitians covered by health insurance. And then at that point, it was 2023. And given market dynamics and all these different things, which I'm sure we'll go into, it was at that point that we got acquired.
Now I want to talk to you about the timing of that decision.
Yep.
The insight that you realized that wanted to get you towards exit, and really just the story behind that part of the process.
Yeah. So 2023, a lot changed in our category from a market perspective. This prescription drug called GLP-1s came to market, more commonly known as Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, etc. And it really started to change consumers' behavior, understandably so. And so patients, for the first time, could take a prescription injectable and start losing weight quickly and see phenomenal results, science-backed, evidence-based phenomenal results. And as that drug came to market and started really working, we had a challenge internally to say, how does our business fit into this equation? Where do dietitians play in the greater ecosystem of a patient's journey taking this drug? Because there's so much funding, there's so much science, there's so much demand for that drug. You have to figure out where you play in it. Like, you couldn't not figure out how if you exist somewhere in the diabetes or weight loss management space, you have to figure out how in some way you play within the GLP-1 space as well. How do you fit into that ecosystem?
It's the equivalent of a marketer ignoring AI.
Correct.
It's like this wave of this tremendous game-changing medication, and you're there, and it's how do you react to that?
Yes. And if you don't react, that's not a smart thing to do, that you're swimming against the tide. And we had to, to be smart, you have to react. How does AI play with marketers? And for us, it was how do GLP-1s now play with the dietitian space? And so we pursued a lot of strategic partnership conversations. And ultimately, the summary for us was dietitians become a great complement or a add-on feature to the GLP-1 experience or to a food as medicine platform. But there's a world where dietitians live within that ecosystem, not as a standalone. And when we had started building the company in 2019, our big vision had a lot of things associated, but it was building on its own. And as the prescription drug came to market, I had to have a really honest conversation with myself, with my co-founder, with our board, where we said, look, consumers are already taking this drug and seeing fast results, and it's working.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that we can do is play there, or figure out a place, to land this business. Why would a consumer work exclusively with a dietitian, which is hard and slow results, if they can take a prescription drug, see fast results? And that was a really hard question to ask ourselves, but it was honest. And it was understanding consumer behavior and understanding where the market was going and understanding the risk and how do you take smart risks that are calculated versus risks that don't make as much sense to you.
Was the pressure that you felt to make a move there more internalized from your own thinking, or did it come from the investors from now you've raised VC funds and you have to build, and VCs expect an exit at some point that is substantial. Did it come from them? Did it come from you? Was it a combo? How did that all start? I just am imagining a tidal wave of GLPs coming towards you and you having to think very quickly. Where did that thinking come from?
It was a combination of both. Those two thoughts couldn't live siloed to each other. I had put 5 years into the business. My net worth was tied up into the business, and I had a fiduciary responsibility to have a return for my investors and wanted to and had worked hard to. You're exactly correct, which is in that thought process, it wasn't just consumer behavior. I mean, there was a lot of how do patient activity change here? The other thing for consideration, and this is for, the VC-backed founders who have to hold this responsibility, is can I now build this company to a high enough valuation that will yield a positive multiple or a positive return for my investors as well as for myself? So if I now dedicate X number of years, do I believe I can get to enter whatever that number needs to be? Can I actually get to a $200 million exit? Because there's a formula that you can put into a calculator that you could see, here's the number you need to pay your investors back first and make a return. And then at some point, there's an exit for you. That doesn't get spoken about a lot. You just see the big fancy numbers that companies get purchased for. But as the founder and alongside my co-founder, it was like, well, what is our next year? What does our next 5 years look like? Can we actually get the business there? Why or why not?
So it was like a simple math equation for you to determine the timing. Like you were like, okay, if I sell now, I can make my investors whole. It could be great. I can do what I need to do for myself. And the timing was just, the realization of that timing was right. That was very brave, Emily, because I would imagine if I never raised funds, I would imagine if I had that pressure on me, I would feel like I would keep going until it was totally dead and worth nothing, because I wouldn't want to disappoint. And instead, you didn't disappoint because you made the brave didn't disappoint as much as, they're always
Some of my investors are disappointed, if I'm speaking honestly. But it was important to me to land the plane.
Yeah.
We had built the plane, we had flown the plane, and we had landed the plane.
Yeah.
And that, to me, for a multitude of reasons, both personally and professionally, for what we had built, for the time, for the energy, for the team, for the dietitians, like, it was important to me that we landed. It was important to me that there was an end to our story.
Right.
And to be frank, like, I attribute that also to deal closing. I will say to every founder, winners always win, and I'm a winner. Did I expect my win of this game to be slightly different? Yes, of course I did. I thought I'd be sitting on $1 billion when I started the company.
Right. Don't we all?
Yes, exactly. But it was important to me to close the chapter on all the time, the money, the energy, the hard work that everyone had put into building this, and land our plane somewhere.
Yep.
And we were very lucky to have Cecily. Thank you. Guys.
Yep. You did what you
We have amazing we had an amazing acquire partner, and that team was wonderful to us. And investors who were disappointed, I am sure I do, but we landed the plane, which was my top priority at the time, given market dynamics and given where my co-founder and I were.
And you probably disappointed them less than if you had blown the whole thing up and been unable.
Thanks. So, yeah.
So, okay. I have a very important part of the story that you haven't mentioned yet, which, Miss Deal Closer, you navigated and did that deal yourself. Like, you facilitated the entire exit. You didn't do a bank or an advisor or anything. So I want to hear how one does that. Especially, I think about, I understand if, like, you're a small business that doesn't have investors and a whole, you led this whole thing. So tell us about that.
There's a few dynamics when you raise venture capital. One, which is most obvious, which is you raise amounts of money, you make revenues, but there's a certain amount of runway that a company has. And there's a certain clock to make a deal successful. And there's different stages of businesses and sizes of businesses. And as a salesperson, I said to myself and my co-founder, if anyone is going to sell this company, and if I think I'm as good as I am, it has to be me. I didn't trust anyone else to do it because the amount of time it would have taken to onboard someone to get us the right deal didn't warrant the type of deal we were really going after, which is there were investors to be considered. There was different assets. So we had, our supply side of the marketplace, which is our dietitians, and we had tons of different tech stacks that we had built over the course of 5 years. And there was a lot of different value propositions that we could bring to the right partner. And when you sell a company, it is my belief in a good sales process, you have to know what is the value that you are bringing to that person and why. And each potential acquisition partner could have been, there were different value props to them. One company could have wanted to buy us for this. One company wanted to buy us for this. And so given the timeline we had, and which was more than enough runway to get through a deal. We weren't, like super behind the clock, but I wanted to do it responsibly because I share the timeline clock because I now work with founders who will come to me and say, I have 90 days, of runway left.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we don't have enough time to put together a thoughtful strategy. I needed enough time to make sure I could go through negotiations, which takes time for anyone who's been through a process. We needed enough time to find the right partner, blah, 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 blah. So that was really how I thought about it. And then I hustled. I put together a list of dream potential acquirers that I had a hypothesis of how our business could add value to their business. And as a salesperson, a lot of the value we drove, I formulated into revenue. If you buy our business, here's what our numbers look like, and here's the potential outcome it could look like for you.
So selling on the potential too. It's not just where they were today, but the potential of the two together. And you just cold outreach? You just like...
Yeah, I did. I write really good emails. I pride myself on that. And I just hustled and I got in front of people and I was like, we could add this to your bottom line. Are you interested? And some people said yes, and some people said no. And some people took second meetings and third meetings. And, one thing led to another. I think we ended up with 6 LOIs in total, and then had a few bumps along the road, and then finally had the right partner, where everything worked out from a timeline perspective and the way that and the assets they wanted and the implementation and all of that.
And so you sold.
We sold to Season Health in fall of 2023.
Amazing. And then were you out right away?
We stayed on to advise, to oversee the implementation of our dietitian network and really make sure everything that they wanted had been landed. Personally, which I think is important as part of the process, I was needing a little time. And it was the right structure for us to stay on as an advisor, but then take some personal time away from the business and just to take some personal time. So
it must have been exhausting. I mean, you built it during COVID. It's 5 years. You raise money. You're out. It must have felt like a whirlwind. The day after you closed, how do you feel?
Well, the craziest thing about selling your business when I worked from home, I have a video of it that I thought at some point I put on the internet, but I never did. I signed the agreement
alone
in sweatpants.
Yeah, me too.
Wet hair, fresh out of the shower. I think I saw the towel, because I got a text, you have paperwork in your email. So I, quickly put on a sweatsuit. My hair was still sopping wet in a towel. I'm sitting, I think, on the corner of my bed because I hadn't even, I think it was something like maybe 7:45 in the morning. Hadn't even gotten ready for the day to make it to my desk. And I sign, I click sign on DocuSign. And I sat there and I'm like, I just sold my company. Not what I thought it would look like. Not what I thought.
Yeah.
It was so to be very frank, one of the hard things that I had to grapple with and one of the things that I then ended up, making sure we celebrated in certain ways. But it was so anticlimactic.
Yeah.
When you hit a home run, you hit the ball on the bat and you get to run around the 3 bases and then you make it to home and you feel that. And one of the really hard things about building during COVID and building in work from home and building in the digital world is a lot of those celebratory moments are small in comparison.
I've never talked about that, but
neither have I, by the way.
That's crazy. I had the exact experience. Dave and I were in a hotel room in Boston visiting colleges for my daughter. And we got the thing and we signed and we were like, high five. It's so weird. That was a unique moment in time. I wonder, I guess it can be like for some companies that operate virtually like that or remotely, it can continue like that. But I think moments for their types of things are important. And I totally agree with you on that. I have a question for you. As you know, and we'll talk about the Whisper Group in a minute, but you know that when I'm evaluating founders, when we look at their Whisper score, one of the things that we look at in addition to their income and their profit and all this stuff, we talk about what I call their roar factor, which is their confidence. And you exude a level of confidence that is really, really inspiring. I knew I have to be one, take it over the finish line. I am a winner. Like you have it. Was that something that was always innate, or was it something that you learned over time? And do you experience self-doubt?
Definitely part of who I am. Definitely my personality. I have 2 brothers. I'm the only girl in the family. I think from day one, I had to figure out how to get my voice heard and stand on my own 2 feet. With that being said, that characteristic trait was definitely strengthened throughout my career and definitely throughout the experience of being a venture-backed founder. I found myself in the room of really amazing, successful people, some of my role models, and also a lot of just men who were 25 years older than I was minimum. And I had to sharpen the skill to, we're on Zoom right now, but like I'm 5'2", I'm relatively little, but when people meet me on Zoom, they think I'm, a lot taller than I am because my personality takes up so much room. And I had to strengthen that skill of bravery of like, I'm going to go in this room and I'm going to get my outcome because that's what I'm here to do. And so, it's probably a lot of self-talk throughout the process. And I think it's a little bit who I am, and then definitely a strengthening of the skill throughout my whole career. And to answer your last question, yes, I have a ton of self-doubt all the time. I think someone ever said they didn't. I would question that. I definitely have imposter syndrome. I definitely had self-doubt. I think it's, part of the process. It makes the times when I doubt myself and get the outcome I want make me strengthen my confidence, because that's a really powerful win, and that's super empowering. Like, oh my God, I was so scared to do that. I did it. And it worked. Exactly.
And when you bounce back from times when things don't work, it improves that muscle too. Throughout all the time with tennis, I always talk about this. I play tennis. I'm not very good, but whenever the ball is coming towards me and I think you are going to smash that, like, you are good, you are going to hit it, I have a much better chance of a successful shot than when I'm like, oh, please, like, yeah, tennis. So I think some of that self-talk is so important. I see so much of that in you in such a beautiful way. And so thank you for sharing that.
Right.
I want to hear about what you're doing now, even though I know the answer. So talk to us a little bit about what you did in your post-exit life.
Yeah, my post-exit life. I did get married right after we exited the company, which was wonderful. Aside from that, so I started a firm called Bolen Advisors, and we are a collective of peers of mine who actually all exited our businesses around the same time. And we help early to mid-stage companies commercialize, productize, and scale their businesses. And so it's a lot of one-on-one work directly with the founders to challenge their thinking and share a lot of the learnings that I've learned along the way to help empower their growth and to help them move a ton faster. And then I also have the privilege of being one of the founding advisors for the Whisper Group and helping founders navigate their upcoming exits and plan for what an exit could look like for them. And I love the work that I get to do. It's really an honor.
Well, we feel so, so lucky to have you as a part of the Whisper Group. And I am just so excited for your future, both with Bolen and with the Whisper Group, and your post-exit life. That's just the first exit. You have such a long life of fabulous entrepreneurship ahead of you. And I'm so, so thrilled to see it. Where should people connect with you? LinkedIn? Is that good? What's that?
Yes, LinkedIn, Emily Hochman Mueller, I think is my name these days. You can email me, emily@boldenadvisors.com or emily@wearethewhispergroup.com. Would love to chat. I really enjoy conversations with business builders. I'm a business builder at heart and a salesperson. So anything I can do to support, I'm here for you.
Emily, thank you so much for sharing your story today on the Exit Whisper. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.